Good afternoon. Welcome to Stay Tuned. Thank you for being here this afternoon to hear our wonderful soloist Inbal Segev. Wasn't that an incredible performance?
Thank you.
And we're so thrilled that you can share a little bit of your, life as a cellist with us this afternoon. The Anna Klein piece was commissioned by you. Tell us a little bit about the various commissions that you've done with living composers and why. Why are you doing this?
Good question. So my husband and I have been commissioning for about 10 years now. I just really love working with living composers. We can't pick up the phone and call Beethoven and ask what he was thinking, but we can definitely call Anna and see what she meant by a phrase. And so I commissioned pieces by fellow Israeli expat Avner Dorman. I've commissioned recently a piece by Victoria Poleva, who is a Ukrainian refugee. A lot of shorter pieces I've commissioned also, not just concertos.
Right, and tell us about that 2020 project when everyone was sequestered and all our concerts were canceled. You came up with this project. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, I was in the kitchen with my husband, and he was sort of, I call him my business brains, and he was like, why don't we do something big, like 20 for 2020? So, wow, 20 commissions is a lot of work. But they're short five-minute pieces. So we did it, and we reached a very different kind of pool of composers from different backgrounds, ages, basically half women, I think, or half men. It was very rewarding. The styles were completely different, and mostly for small ensembles, so not just cello, but cello with other one instrument or two instruments.
Oh, interesting. And we were both in Dallas last weekend for the Women in Classical Music Symposium, and you did the premiere, the world premiere of the Poleva cello concerto, we got a chance to hear the composer and you on a panel discussing this work. Can you share a little bit about the background of the cello concerto that you just were the world premiere last Sunday? Yes.
Yes, so the head of the London Philharmonic, I have an ongoing relationship with them because I recorded this concerto that you've heard tonight with the London Philharmonic. And so she called us one day, my husband and I, and she said, well, I have a composer from Ukraine. She's practically sleeping on my couch. She's a refugee. I really want to help her. She's not very well known in the West, and it will be great if we were to commission something. I listened to Victoria's works, and I loved it, and we did commission, and she wrote me a beautiful concerto, very powerful. So we just premiered it in Dallas, yes.
Right, and then I was on a panel discussion entitled Harmonizing Inclusion and Normalizing Diversity. And I was talking about all the things that we're doing here with the Fresno Philharmonic. And after our panel discussion, there were many media outlets there. The Violin Channel was there. The CEO of the League of American Orchestras was there. And they were thrilled with everything that we were doing here in Fresno. So the Fresno Philharmonic, yes, is being recognized, and we're just so thrilled with all of the work that we've been doing. The orchestra has really been game, and all of you, again, thank you for your support. So I wanted to go on to the fact that you're a jet setter. Like, right after this talk, you are hopping on a plane to go where?
Yesterday in the morning, I got a call from my manager, and she's like, well, there has been a cancellation in Helsinki, and they asked if you would play dance, the piece you've just heard. So I said, yeah, of course. It's a great orchestra there, too. So the plane tickets are a nightmare, so we've been on the phone for my husband dealt with this for hours, just getting the cello ticket is very complicated because some airlines wouldn't make it easy for us, so.
Right, and so you are going home for an hour. In New York is your home base.
Yeah, 3 hours, enough to do 2 cycles of laundry, and then
It seems like every time you go home, you just do laundry. But you have a family, you have children, and you were mentioning your husband who's very supportive.
Yes.
So what is your routine when you go home, and you have a couple of days at home?
Well, I sometimes I'm just like a zombie. I have very little energy, but sometimes I compose. I started composing during the pandemic, so that's a lot of fun. Thank you. Because I have my studio, I've got the setup there. I usually come back to a very empty fridge and 3 teenagers that are like, "We have no food." So, you know how it is. So.
And since you are traveling to Helsinki, have you been there before?
I've been there years ago, 20 years ago. I won a competition there. There's a big cello competition there.
So when you go to a new city, what is kind of the first thing that you do after you unpack? You've done a rehearsal and you have some downtime. Do you find the best coffee shop?
Coffee. That's definitely the best. And food, Food is, Yes. I love trying the new foods of the culture. Okay. But I usually, I don't really have a lot of time. So what's fascinating to me is always meeting the musicians and the audience, because that gives me sort of a feel for the culture of the place. And that's really, really interesting and fun.
And out of all your travels, where was your most favorite adventure? Besides Fresno.
Yes, I played in Bangkok years ago, and that was so weird. I had to bow 7 times because the prince was supposed to be there. They told me I have to bow, to curtsy on my way to the podium, walking, curtsying, walking. It was a real, surreal experience.
With your cello.
With holding the cello and curtsying. Oh, well, every culture has its thing, but that was hilarious. But I loved seeing their ancient city there with all the palaces are very ornate. It's beautiful.
Oh, wow, that sounds amazing. And when you go to these exotic places, do you sometimes stay a couple days after to just relax and enjoy, or do you bring your family sometimes?
Well, we met in Reno, right? Or no, we were not. But I was there recently, and we did stay. My family did come, and they went skiing. I never skied before, so I skied for the first and last time, probably because we were always afraid to break something. But so we did stay, but it's rare. Usually, I don't really stay. I don't feel like I can leave my kids alone, and they have school, so they can't really come. But once in a while, especially when I play in Israel. Where my mom lives. Yeah.
Oh, nice. So I'm just going to ask you a really random question. If you were to pick your top 5 favorite composers, what would they be? In what order?
Ooh. It's what do I like more, steak or dessert? It's kind of hard, but
off the top of your head, just in this moment.
The B's, Bach, Beethoven, and Brahms, and then. I tell you who's not on the list, it's Mozart, although I love his music, but he didn't write us anything, so I'm mad. But he would have been on the list. So those 3, I also love Prokofiev. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody really, really good. I love Ravel, yeah. It's true, his string quartet is just wow.
Do you play chamber music?
Sure,
A lot?
I mean, I used to more. I wish I did more now. But I play with the Chamber Music Society of Lincoln Center, and we tour sometimes. And it's such an amazing thing.
Now, what's the difference as a musician, as a soloist, playing with an orchestra compared to playing in a string quartet like the Lincoln Center, the musicians of the Lincoln Center?
It's more democratic. Here we are leading the orchestra, the 2 of us, and usually with new pieces, I've had more kind of mileage with them, so I and you were extremely accommodating to all my whims, to my tempi and everything, so I really appreciate you. But with a quartet, it's, you sort of have to find a consensus. So.
And sometimes that consensus has difficulty in consensus, finding that sweet spot where you all agree. So how does that work for you? Do you kind of listen to everybody and then try it? I mean, what's the process of your style of chamber music?
It depends who I play with. If I play with people who are less experienced, I usually try to lead. If I play with people that have more experience playing a certain type of repertoire, I keep quiet and I try to follow. It's a great muscle to develop, to being able to follow, of course. It's not always easy to make that switch.
Right, and having now played twice from the keyboard with our orchestra, it is very much like chamber music where we're listening to each other, we're helping each other. Even in the rehearsals, the cellist or the timpanist will say, "Can we do this, like this?" And that is so much a part of chamber music and making music together. And I find that so rewarding.
Yes.
And not just standing and telling them what to do on the podium. But, okay, one last question, and then we'll open it up to the audience for questions. What are your favorite movies?
Well, my favorite, she was asking favorite books. When I was a kid, I loved Little Women. But as an adult, I have a lot of favorite books. I don't know. But with movies, it's easier. I think I love The Godfather 2. And I love Room with a View. We were just saying yesterday. I don't know if any of you watched it. It's a very slow. And I love Romero movies. They're just slow. But honestly, I haven't been watching much lately. I think with my kids, watching, TikToks and everything is just into very short bites these days, so I lost my patience.
And when you're taking these long flights, like you're going to New York and then Helsinki, what do you do on the plane most of the time? What is your go-to when you hop on the plane and you're just exhausted or you're wired or nervous or, what do you normally do on the plane?
I either read or sleep, or now I started even composing because I bring my laptop on, and the sound is terrible with the headphones, but I managed to do some, figure out some things. Yeah.
That's amazing. Wow. Okay, we'd like to open it up to questions from the audience. Yes. So the question is, tell us about your cello.
Thank you. It was made in 1673, which is before Bach was born. I found it in Chicago. It was made in Cremona, just outside of the city's walls for tax purposes. The maker is Ruggieri. I know they were conscious of taxes back then too. So living within the walls of Cremona was expensive. So he lived right outside. He was a contemporary of Stradivarius. Very lucky to have it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes. So that is the bowed, it was the bowed vibraphone, yes. And also crotales. So usually you hear them being struck with a hammer, but this is bowed with bass bows. And they're pulling out the sound, which is coinciding with her harmonics or her pitches. But, you could hear so many spectrums in the overtones when they're being bowed. Yes.
Yeah, we call it comet tail. I call it comet tail because it's a really smart way of Anna's to amplify the cello. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. It's a great question. So I actually met Anna through a conductor that we both know very well, Marin Alsop. She's sort of both our mentors, I would say, right? And Marin sort of had a sixth sense that Anna and I will hit it off, and we did. Anna is herself a cellist, amateur cellist, but cellist, And so she wanted to write a cello concerto, and it was a great match. Yes, she did.
And did you have anything to do with the poetry? Did you say, I would love you to write something based on Rumi's?
No, that was all Anna, but I did have a say. She showed me some parts of what she was writing as she was writing, and she asked what I thought, and I added some embellishments and octaves and made it a little more cellistically virtuosic. So now I have to practice more.
And Anna's works are really often inspired by literary poems or stories. So please check out more of her music. It's pretty amazing how much she draws inspiration from the printed word poetry, which is so that I love Rumi. I've always loved Rumi's
Me too,
poetry.
yeah.
Very
Beautiful.
spiritual, and I think the music reflects that spirituality as well. Yes.
Inside. I always buy a ticket. Yeah. No, I have a seat for it. I wish they had a special spot. That would be much cheaper.
So you have to always buy another seat when you're traveling.
Always.
Yes. The life of a cellist.
They can't. No, that's too big. So they have special cases that are really, really sturdy. I know. It's probably not. I don't know. A good question.
Yes, it could be a bass.
Yes.
And have you ever had people say things like, "Oh, will you play for us on the plane?"
Oh, yes. I feel for my daughter who is a singer. She's probably, just sing for us something. And it's like, no, I need to warm up. I need to be in the mood. I need to be in the zone. But
So
yeah.
Have you ever played on the plane?
You know, if I had a cheaper cello, I think I would. But I mean, if this thing falls or somebody bumps into it, it's a dangerous environment, you know? It's, yeah. Well, maybe. I'll have to ask my daughter. But yeah, probably loud out there, yeah.
Yes, go ahead. We want to hear about the bow.
Sure. I don't know if you noticed, but towards the end of the concerto in the fourth movement, a little piece of my bow flew out, and the first violinist, Stephanie, and I were exchanging looks. She thought my bow was about to just break, but in fact, it was just the button, the little piece that is. It's there for weight more than anything else. It was a little loose, so I have to glue it. But it was very funny and lucky that none of you got hit in the head with this.
And sometimes the weight, just the distribution kind of throws you off, but you didn't feel, I couldn't tell.
I felt it, but it wasn't a big difference. So yeah.
It's like the piano bench, all of a sudden yeah. Yes.
I do. It took years, but I do.
Yes.
Yes.
Who is this?
Oh, Timo Andres. I mentioned him.
Oh, yes,
over lunch.
yes,
Oh,
yes.
that's amazing that you heard him. So Timo is actually a good friend of mine and a wonderful composer. He wrote me also a cello concerto. And I performed it with the Cincinnati Orchestra, and we are recorded it. Actually, it's going to come out in March this year. So, he's also happens to be my composition teacher. So I'm very glad you brought his name up.
What is the greatest cello concerto ever written?
What do you think? What do you think? It's Dvorak. Come on.
It is.
It's Dvorak.
Yes, Dvorak. I have a question. Oh, no, we have a question here. Go ahead.
Since I was 5, how old are you? Yes, so you're over the hill. No, I'm just kidding. So great. So you're with the program. Super. What are you practicing now? Suzuki Book 2? Nice.
Well, I'm so glad you're here today to hear this amazing cellist. Actually, Inbal, I don't know your background, like what got you started in music. Are your family musicians? And why the cello? Why did you pick cello?
Well, my mom is a pianist, but we always say she's a closet cellist because she always wanted to play the cello, but somehow it was just too late or whatever. So she passed the love of the instrument to me, and I did. I loved it. I loved listening to it and dancing to recordings of the Bach cello suites. And then the whole story is I studied in Israel and I came to the States when I was 16 at the recommendation of Isaac Stern, very famous violinist. And I got a full scholarship. I was very, very lucky, and then I stayed here. Sure. Absolutely, yeah, after.
Okay, yes, one more question. How many hours a day do you practice?
Well, when I was your age, it was a half an hour every day. Then when I was a teenager, it was 3 hours every day. Then when I got to Yale School of Music, it was like the whole day, morning to evening with breaks for lunch. I was very ambitious. It was a lot of work. And then I went to Juilliard, and again, it was a lot of hours. Now it depends. Sometimes if I don't have an immediate concert, I just do an hour or maybe most 2 for just maintenance. But I don't need to do so much. Like if it's a hard concerto, probably 3 hours or maybe 4. But usually not even. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Inbal, for being
Thank
here.
you.
We just loved having you. Thank you all. Have a wonderful afternoon.